this.
In the interest of being objective and providing a fair review, I will be keeping my personal bias and love for this brand aside for a few minutes. But then that makes me want to question, why would anyone buy a car with looks like these in 2026? And with a starting price of over 560,000 dirhams, it just makes it increasingly more difficult to make a case for this car to logical buyers. And that makes me wonder, for that kind of price, you can get yourself something like a Porsche 911, a car that defined the term sports car and yet didn't mandate you to have the recovery truck driver's number on your speed dial. So can the handmade British sports car with looks from the 1960s really rival Germany's legacy defining best? And more importantly, do you still need to have a mustache to drive a new Morgan? I'm Yash with a mustache. You're watching the TCI, and this is the review of the Morgan Supersport. Supersport. First of all, what a superb name. And second of all, it's not called the +5 or the +6.5, it's called Supersport. And if you know anything about Morgans, you must be wondering, wait, don't most Morgans have a number next to their name? Which is exactly why Morgan has called this car the Supersport, because this car signals a shift into the brand's ethos. With the Supersport, Morgan wants to let go of its older perception of just being a sports car manufacturer with old world charm and old world looks. Now it wants to progress through and cement itself as a bona fide sports car manufacturer with serious performance. All that while retaining its hand-built Morgan magic. And Morgan has gone to great lengths to make sure that the Supersport stands out by giving it a new name, by giving it a new brand ethos, by giving it a new and improved chassis, and even a new sleeker design language. Which is exactly why when you pop open the bonnet, the engine and the gearbox is exactly the same as the previous +6 it replaces. Yeah, it still gets the 3-liter straight-six V58 engine from BMW along with the 8-speed ZF automatic transmission. Even the tune is the same as before with 335 brake horsepower and 500 Newton meters of torque. Which makes me wonder, are we being catfished here or something? Let me put it this way. The older +6 was considered great because of that superior engine. The new Supersport will be considered exciting because Morgan has engineered the entire car to make sure that the rest of the car fits and kind of matches up with that superior engine. And the engineering upgrades begin right from the Supersport's architecture. The new CVX chassis made of bonded aluminium is now stiffer with more bracing. If you want more rigidity, add the optional carbon composite hardtop roof. Though in traditional Morgan fashion, you still get ash wood framing around the body. Other engineering upgrades include a reworked steering setup that now offers quicker response. The suspension has been upgraded as well, with stronger mounting points and anti-roll bars for a flatter, sure-footed drive. The car can also be optioned with nitro dampers, but our test car didn't have so, making it a conversation for another time. The suspension has more travel to absorb bumps better, and the rims itself are now lighter than on the +6, which means the tires will now follow the road more faithfully, inspiring confidence. Yes, lighter by 3 kilos per wheel if you go for the 18-inch rims. That is the one that we have here, and that comes standard with the car. If you want further weight shedding, you can go for the even more lightweight 19-inch wheels, which sheds 4 kilos per wheel. And even that most weight-saving option, you are still saving around 16 kilograms in total all around the car. And that does not seem a lot for a car that just weighs under 1200 kilograms. However, You're forgetting the fact that that weight has not been cut off from the cabin. The weight has been cut off from the wheels. And that basically means you're strapping your legs with sport shoes instead of leather boots. And while the looks may make it feel so, it is not an out and out hard and fast sports car. It has a fair bit of versatility to it. Because in the olden times, traditionally, when you bought a Morgan, that modern vehicle would be the fifth buy in your garage. But with the Supersport, Morgan wants to change that perception and bring your new Morgan purchase to maybe the third car or even the second car of the house. And for that to happen, it needs to have a whole lot of versatility, a whole lot of convenience, a whole lot of just easy going for everyday commute, which we will get to in a moment. But when you take it out to a mountains, which we have, and push it through its paces to do what it is supposed to do in the first place, my God, it is a rewarding experience. My favorite bit among this has to be the steering, which they have upgraded and made it fairly quicker from the previous PlusSix, and the rewards are immense. Like even the slightest of twitches, you can see and you can feel what the wheels are doing. You can feel the texture of the road through the steering wheel on your fingers, and that is proper communication. That is a bona fide driver enthusiast vehicle friendly steering wheel. When you take the car through a corner, you can feel that it's on the very ragged edge of kicking its tail out, but it just manages to keep it in line. You as a driver will have to be a skilled one to actually hold that slide in place and make sure that you're sliding your way across. It is not a car that will forgive you so easily. It will punish you if you make a mistake. So you need to be alert. It is a fun car regardless of that. Things to consider while you're pushing this car on twisty roads. First of all, the brakes. I would have liked the brake pedal feel to be a bit more responsive, to have that bite a little more early up front, so I have that confidence to push the car even more than what I am doing. It has the bite, but only on the lower end, kind of reminds you of Formula 1 cars or rather sim racers. Secondly, whenever you're pushing that car at insane speeds, the mirror starts to give way, and I'm not making this up. We have had close to 3 to 4 instances where the mirror alignment just went all over the place and it kind of started banging against the plexi window. Third, it may not look like there's a lot of visibility in the front because frankly the rear windshield is a lot bigger than the front windshield, but the visibility is absolutely astonishing. One look over the shoulder and you basically have the entire rear open. In the city, it is a sedate commuter, and you do feel the length of the bonnet from behind the steering wheel, because when you're on the outside it doesn't feel as big, but when you're sitting on the driver's seat it just feels a lot more elongated. But there's a plus side to it as well. That is, you can actually see the corners thanks to its massively curved front fenders. So you know where the corners of the car is. So you know how and where you can position the car. So maneuvering it is fairly easy. But on the highways, I wouldn't call it exactly pleasant because there's a fair amount of wind noise there and you don't get any cruise control. And with the steering wheel fairly fast on this rack, you just have to be alert all the time. But the star of the show, apart from the steering wheel, obviously, has to be the one thing that Morgan has decided to improve everything around. That is that twin turbocharged 3-liter B58 straight 6 engine. It is a blast to basically rack up great speeds. And in normal mode, you still feel a slight hint of turbo lag, but put it to Sport Plus and that turbo lag is basically gone, invisible, not there. What is non-existent? That's the word. Should we keep that? Yeah. Okay. So if you're out for a mountain drive, this is one of the cars to have for that weekend getaway drive. Of course, with just one passenger and maybe a bit of optimistic luggage, but that's about it. Because this car is solely for the driver's passion. It just feels you're going so much more faster than you actually are. This is a car that you bring out every weekend because that's the only way you'll get all that value, all that fun, all that excitement out of it. And that is why it costs what it costs. The turbo spooling, the intake noises, it is just an entire experience beyond just going fast in a straight line. And that is how I would like to sum up the Morgan Supersport. And mind you, all that grown-up fun does not come at the cost of convenience anymore. And this is one part that might just have Porsche enthusiasts slightly more nervous than before. Compared to the older PlusSix, you now get things like Bluetooth audio, hands-free calling, wireless charging, all part of a connectivity pack that has been optioned for this car, and we are glad about it. There's also usable storage in the dashboard, even more storage behind the seats, a boot that works beyond sheer optimism, and an easier mechanism to open the side screens, so carrying the Morgan owner's manual is no longer a necessity. And because this is still coach built, you can get very personal with the specifications such as paint, leather, stitching, veneers, dashboard finishes, roof options, wheels, luggage details, even headrest embroidery. Obviously, all depending on the market and availability. On a Morgan, these choices will matter a whole lot than compared to any other luxury car, because the details, the personalized configurations that you choose for your Morgan will have a drastic impact on the personality of the car. And if that personality comprises the Supersport to be the second car in your garage, there are a couple of quirks that only a Morgan has, and that's something that you might have to get used to. For instance, the size of the infotainment screen will entirely depend on the size of your smartphone. There is no armrest for long hauls. The AC works fairly well in Dubai heat, but you will be constantly jealous of the lower half of the dashboard because of the placement of the vents. Almost every conversation with a new co-passenger might start with you explaining how the door latch works. And with no cup holders anywhere around the cabin, the patience of your co-passenger and the size of their palms will decide how many bottles you can carry with you. And with no sensors or cameras anywhere around the car, you'll have to go back to relying on one of your more powerful senses, your eyes. And the Morgan experience doesn't just stop with the people inside, because from the outside, it certainly puts on a show. Now this is the part where I talk about the headlights, the grille and the whole side profile and how it has been tweaked and changed and overhauled compared to the previous PlusSix. However, we'll get into that later. First, I want to talk about what this car does. And I don't just mean by what this car does to you as a person or as a driver, but even how the car changes the entire behavior of the world around you. What I mean by that is, whenever I took this car out on the fast lane, people in front of me moved, even without me flashing or honking. They just were curious with this retro yet rare design, and they wanted to let me pass by just because they could see the entirety of the car. The police smiled and waved at me. And when I took this car to fill up at the fuel station, the attendants there actually hurried everybody else away just so that they could make time and space for me and the car, so that they can have the car fueled up properly and also take in the sights. Only a handful of cars in the world can do all of those things together, especially when you consider that the place we've tested this car out is Dubai, where it's almost impossible to one-up anybody else on the streets. And I didn't think that anything else could have topped off that rare yet retro, classic looking design. Yet that paint shade made a whole lot of difference and kind of elevated the visual experience of the car from the outside. Compared to the PlusSix it replaces, the Supersport now feels cleaner and more resolved. The classic Morgan ingredients are still here. Long bonnet, round headlights, flowing wings, compact cabin. But the surfaces are sleeker. The stance is more planted, and the hard top makes it feel complete and less of a weekend toy. I don't think I'll be wrong in saying that the car is killer. And I mean that literally, because once we were done driving the car fast all across the mountains, look at the windshield. It is literally a graveyard. And we have tested multiple such fast cars in the past, but none have left a mark or marks as well as the Morgan. It probably has something to do with the fact that this has a much steeper raked windscreen and the fact that it is properly insanely quick when it comes to acceleration. So how does the Morgan Supersport fare against the Porsche 911? Or rather, does the Supersport even have enough to stack up against the 911? If I'm being honest, going up against the Porsche 911 was always going to be a monumental task, simply because the 911 just does so many things right from the performance to the looks to the reliability and even the luxury aspect. It just performs exceptionally, effortlessly and brilliantly in all those aspects. So it almost feels like an idiot-proof iPhone that can do it all and be the best at it. So in theory, it is kind of impossible to beat the 911 logically. But we are also humans, and humans also run highly on emotions. And in that respect, Morgan has made significant strides to make sure that emotions finally have a bona fide chance to maybe, just maybe, overpower logic. If the 911 is an iPhone, Morgan has made sure that the Supersport has progressed from being a vinyl record player to easily an iPod classic. It may not be one of the most efficient machines out there, but it definitely evokes that sense of nostalgia. It definitely will wow people every time you take it out. Porsche has made sure that the 911 is an engineering marvel that will always and always leave you impressed. But the Morgan Supersport here, now that evokes that sense of emotion, that sense of drama that only good theater, maybe a good cinema, or maybe just a very, very good story can. What do you think? Would emotions overtake logic for you?